Hi, I'm Cheyenne Reel, and this is our presentation on the incarceration of juveniles.
Hi, my name is Jessica Leva.
Hi, my name is Gabriella Muka.
Worldwide, over 53,000 youths are incarcerated or confined every day, and over 10,000 of those same kids are incarcerated over minor offenses, like a probation violation or a status offense, which includes underage drinking, purchasing of cigarettes, violating a curfew, skipping school, in simpler terms means truancies, and simply running away from home. Another definition of incarceration is residential placement, and that makes it sound less harsh, right? A juvenile offender is anyone under the age of 18 by law. A few facilities that juveniles can be placed into are detention centers, juvenile hall, or house arrest. House arrest for juveniles is the opposite of incarceration. It includes limited freedom, like working if applicable, going to school, counseling, and 24/7 parental or guardian supervision. It also lessens the caseload for probation officers and decreases the overall population in jails and prisons, which is a completely different other issue. But two cases that stood out in the juvenile court system would be Roper versus Simmons in 2005, which established that juveniles under 18 cannot be given the death penalty, but can be given life without parole. Fast forwarding 5 years, Graham versus Florida in 2010 established that juveniles who commit homicide are the only ones to be sentenced to life without parole. We conducted a Google survey with questions pertaining to individuals who can connect themselves to committing petty crimes as a minor, so under the age of 18. The questions we asked were to grasp a better understanding of how many small crimes we commit as juveniles, but do not get sentenced or sent to jail because of them. Questions included gender identification, consumption of alcohol, committing theft, committing vandalism, physical altercations, pulling of a fire alarm, running away from home, and if you were caught by authorities, an explanation if you felt comfortable, and if you knew anyone who would have answered yes to the above questions. Pertaining to the survey responses, there were 42 of them. Women outnumbered the men, that is for sure, so shout out to the women out there. And the responses given shed light onto how many of us commit illegal acts as minors, but do not get sentenced or prosecuted unfairly for the crime or act we took part in. I'm going to begin talking about the questions and relaying the information that we found. So the first question talked about the consumption of alcohol. Majority of you guys said yes, and the penalties and repercussions if you got caught would have been quite severe as a juvenile. Committing theft, majority of you guys also said yes, and if caught, the juvenile justice system has numerous ways to retract the act, like fines, restitution, counseling, probation, or detention. Speaking towards vandalism, majority of you guys said no. For physical altercations, majority of you guys also said no. The pulling of a fire alarm, majority of the responses said no. Running away from home, it was a little bit in between, but the majority, no. If you did mark yes to if you were caught, majority of you guys were not. But for the individuals caught, the explanation they gave to us were probation, getting grounded by parents, and a prosecution threat. But luckily the cops were never called, and another one was the banning of being somewhere in a public space. Majority of you also said yes to knowing other individuals who would have said yes to these questions. And this only shows us exactly what Professor Ireland was teaching us with the quiz that we also had to take. How would we be punished? How would we feel at the end of the day? But again, thank you guys for taking the survey. I appreciate it.
Programs for incarcerated juveniles. core treatment interventions, treatment education programs, therapy groups, mapping enhanced counseling interventions. Some treatment education programs are the Y-Try Learning Strategies program, and the Y-Try is a brief solution-focused treatment with a strengths-based approach to helping youth overcome their challenges, achieve positive goals, practice life skills, and develop plans and support for re-entering their community. The Stay Sharp Substance Abuse Education Program is a program for juvenile substance abuse, and its name is also the organizing principle. S is seeking motivation, H is how I got here, A is abuse or addiction, R is ready for change, P is for planning for the future. Some individual/group therapy and mapping enhanced counseling interventions are the Treatment Readiness and Induction Program, and it is designed for delivery with youth who are in the recruit phase or orientation/induction phase of treatment. TRIP is facilitated by mental health professionals, and the goal of TRIP is to help engage youth in the treatment process to improve life skills and decision making and to strengthen their commitment to remaining in treatment in order to fully address their treatment goals. Advanced Relapse Prevention is a group therapy for substance abuse/addiction recovery and is facilitated by mental health professionals, and ARP targets youth with identified moderate to high substance abuse/addiction recovery needs. Community Volunteer Treatment Programs, AA/NA, Benvenido, Hope and Loss, Partners in Health, Peace Learning. AA/NA support meetings, counseling, and a framework for self-examination and a road to recovery. Benvenido is a program that is a strengths-based mental health promotion program that provides youth an opportunity to vent their experiences regarding incarceration, establish a relationship with the community leader, and learn how to create ways to improve mental health and self-esteem while in a facility. Hope and Loss is to address the concerns and pain of youth who have experienced painful loss. Partners in Health is a area of sex education, healthy relationships, and parenting that teaches juveniles. Peace Learning, it implements an intensive peace education program that blends conflict resolution and diversity skills with challenge education that promotes personal responsibility for success. Another treatment or program is Youth Services Agency Nature Center, and that provides empathy development through animal therapy to adjudicated youth. This project generates evidence-based outcomes and quantifies the impact of animal therapy on empathy development of adjudicated youth at the YSA Nature Center by utilizing self-assessment tools.
So, what does a typical incarcerated juvenile look like in terms of derived characteristics and background? Well, 85% of all incarcerated juveniles in the United States are young African American men. As well, did you know that compared to the percentage race makeup of the United States, young African American and Native American juveniles are overrepresented in juvenile incarceration? This means that, in comparison to the percentage of African American and Native Americans in the United States, juveniles of these backgrounds are more likely to be incarcerated as a minor. These charts, one from Child's Trends Organization and the Department of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Program, shows this disparity. Typically, an incarcerated juvenile is around 16 to 17 years old, as revealed in a nationwide study of juveniles incarcerated. So, what about their background? Well, according to several studies on incarcerated juveniles in the United States, there is a significant correlation between incarceration and previous exposure to trauma. One study even found that more than half of the juveniles in a northeastern United States juvenile center had at least one mental health problem. Did you also know that most incarcerated juveniles are committed based on nonviolence offenses? Which brings to question why they are kept in confinement. Because the typical juvenile offender is male, let's look at female juvenile offenders for just a bit. Did you know that crime amongst female juvenile offenders has been on the rise in recent years? And one study looking into the mental health for juveniles found that female offenders were more likely to have been either abused or sexually abused. And about 70% of all female juveniles have experienced something traumatic. As well, white female juvenile offenders were found to be the most violent while incarcerated in these juvenile centers.